Tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus may be inducted into one of the Holy Orders. These subcults represent different specializations within the organization. Today, we're talking about their rules on the tabletop for your games of Warhammer 40,000 9th edition. Let's go check them out.
Anvil of War! Let's talk tactics!
Hey guys, and welcome back to Anvil of War Gaming. Today on the show, we're talking about the Holy Orders of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, before we get into the video, I just want to do a quick reminder. If you're enjoying our content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, let us know and we'll continue to make more. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can do so by supporting our sponsors over at Red Dragon. There's a link to their web store in the video description below. Now, when we're talking about the Holy Orders of the Adeptus Mechanicus, we're specifically talking about the rendition in the new 9th edition Adeptus Mechanicus Codex. Now, they were brought forth in the Psychic Awakening and in those campaign books, and there was ones that were auto-includes and there was ones that were just not very good. The ones that were auto-includes were terrifying, and we've seen some sort of we've seen some balance brought in with the new ones. But there's some rewards to taking the new ones as well. I mean, they're not just getting kind of nerfed, they're getting sort of balanced out, and we're seeing that across 9th edition with any of the new codexes. The Adeptus Mechanicus are in a very good place right now. They're very, very strong. I like to think of the Codex as this giant toolbox, and if you know every single tool that you have available to you, you can make some really, really devastating lists. But it comes down to remembering that you have those tools, especially with the stratagems and things like that. And the Holy Orders really fall into that as well. Now, when we're discussing these, we do have to kind of give them a broad overview just to look at their structure and how they're kind of represented, or how we're including them in our armies. They come in at a points cost of around 25 points to 35 points, in that range, or 1 to 2 power level if you're playing power level. Now, these are a bargain. They're a steal, and the reason is that each one of them comes with like an additional ability that allows you to reduce a single stratagem by 1 command point in specific brackets, types, in stratagem subtypes. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get to each one of them, but right there off the top, I mean, you're saving 1 command point just from the cost. So 25 to 35 points for 1 command point. I mean, yes, especially in an army that is super, super dependent on having command points available. I mean, you have this huge toolbox. You have all of these abilities. You have all these amazing stratagems that are going to really complement specific units in your army. But you need to have those stratagems. You need to have those CPs to be able to use those stratagems. So gating additional 1 is a yes. Instantly, it's a yes. Now, you can upgrade any tech priest in your army. Now, this can be the new techno-archaeologist, this can be a tech priest manipulus, this can be a tech priest engine seer, or it can be a tech priest dominus. It can't be a named character, so no, Belisarius cannot have one. He's too good already. Now, as far as, cheap HQ options, I mean, throwing one of these on a tech priest engine seer, or something that's going to be, is going to be on the table and hopefully in a good position, because obviously, as with anything in our army, it's super dependent on keeping them within ranges of the either. I mean, if you're going the Skitarii route, then obviously the data tether range and synergy, but otherwise you just need to be within range of all of your auras, and you got a ton of them. So you really got to kind of think that through when you pick which one you're picking and the units that you're intending to complement with it. Now, let's talk about how they kind of work. So they each have an initial part and an advanced part, 2 stages. Now, at the beginning of your command phase, you can choose to switch the parts and perform an action. And it doesn't take effect until you're switching it from the initial part to the advanced part. And it doesn't take effect until the start of your next command phase. But the initial part is still in effect for that command phase. So, I mean, you're able to activate it and still use the initial part, so that's important. Some of these you're going to notice that the initial part is really good, and some of them it's not so good. So some of them you're going to want to right off the hop, turn 1, switch over to the advanced, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through each individual one. Yeah, and it's just it's a really interesting little rule. It's kind of makes you think about where your guys are, where they're going to be, making sure that your units are close together in order to use those command abilities. So, first off, we have the Genitors or Janitors. The Genitors. So these guys have changed pretty significantly, I would say. We're going to talk about their ability, first of all, which is the Adaptive Mastery. Now, Adaptive Mastery, once per battle, if this model is on the battlefield, when you use an Adeptus Mechanicus battle tactic stratagem, reduce the CP cost of that stratagem by 1 command point. Now, this does not affect it for the remainder of the game. They had to clarify that. It does not affect it for the remainder of the game. It's just that one use that it's being reduced by 1. But, I mean, with the Adeptus Mechanicus, the nice thing is there in each one of those kind of subcategories of stratagems, there's ones that you're going to be using throughout the game for all list diverse, like all potential lists are going to draw from each one of those categories throughout the game. So which right off the top tells you that I mean, there's no real wrong answer here. The initial part for this one now, the progressive ability, learning of the Genitor. Now, initial part, biochemical aggression. In your command phase, if this part is active for the model, select one friendly Forge World Core or Forge World Cataphrone Servitors unit within 6 inches of this model. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds the target. Now, pretty good. Something that you kind of want to keep in mind is that you're looking at something that can pump out a high volume of attacks, but that's really limited within the Adeptus Mechanicus. You're looking for something that maybe would struggle to wound because you're not getting those increases from your... maybe you don't have the strength or something to get through to big targets or something like that. You're looking at something that can just pump out a ton of attacks. But the problem is that I find that things like the Rust Stalkers and your Fulgurite Electropriests, those guys... you want to be rolling those wound rolls because you want to be doing mortal wounds with them. So this puts us in a sort of a tough decision, a tough dilemma. You're not going to be looking at these units because I think that if you're auto wounding, you're not gaining the maximum potential of doing those mortal wounds, which is kind of why you take those units in the first place. So instead, we're looking at things like the Infiltrators where, I mean, you can have exploding hits as it is, and then if you're rolling the 6, it's exploding into 2 additional hits because of the taser goads. And then on top of that, you also have the 6 is automatically wounding right away, so that's going through. But these guys do swing at a pretty high strength as it is, so I mean, if you're taking the Arc Claw maybe on some Cataphron Breachers, that's an option. I think that's going to be the one that's going to stand out the most for me, because there isn't a lot of synergy for Cataphron Destroyers or Breachers in the book, just because they don't have the core keyword. So you're going to find yourself looking for little things that you can do to buff them. And I mean, the the Servo Claw, or Hydraulic Claw, whatever it's called now, I find it stands out to me as the better melee option for Breachers. So with that, you know, these guys are striking at a high strength as it is, so they're probably not going to suffer too much difficulty as far as getting wounds through. But the fact is that these things do high damage output with flat 3 damage. So, I mean, having some auto wounds, not having to rely on your dice rolls is always good as well. So I think I'm going to give this one it's a mediocre. It really needs to be played with the right unit in order to really benefit them. Now, the advanced part of this one, though, so this is Hyper Cybernetic Physiology. In your command phase, if this part is active for this model, select one friendly Forge World Cataphron Servitor or Forge World Servitors unit within 6 inches of this model until the start of your next command phase. Each time a model in this unit would lose a wound, roll 1d6. On a 6, that wound is not lost. Again, I mean... You might want to keep these guys in the initial part if you are planning on keeping them babysitting a big blob of... maybe you're looking at Corpuscari Electropriests or something like that, or Infiltrators. But again, these are things that you want jumping up the table in your opponent's face, so you have to kind of keep that in mind depending on what character you're synergizing with. The advanced portion of this, I mean, getting a 6+ wound shrug, feel no pain, on some Cataphren servitors on a big blob of maybe breachers or destroyers sitting in the backfield can be pretty strong. I mean, 6+ feel no pain is nothing to scoff at. It's still an additional save. These guys also got +1 to their armor saves in this edition, so they're already increased. They already have a bit of increased durability, and I think there's some games you can play with. I mean, if you're looking at specific Forge Worlds, if you're buffering these guys up to toughness 6, and then you're also stacking all of these defensive abilities, there's some good stuff there. This one's probably not going to fall into my my top choice, just because there's a lot of requirements to make it work really well. And I think the 6+ feel no pain. I mean, I feel like if you're going to get anything from it, it's okay. I mean, it is 25 points, so it is a bargain, but. Let's move on to the Logai. So the Logai, or Logai. So this one has the scriptural prognosis. Now, once per battle, if this model is on the battlefield, when you use an Adeptus Mechanicus strategic ploy stratagem, reduce the CP cost of that stratagem by 1 command point. So strategic ploy stratagems, there's some good ones in there. Again, I can see myself using one of these every game, so right there, command point refund. The initial part for this is the predicted barrage. So in your command phase, if this part is active for the model, select one friendly Forge World core unit within 6 inches of this model until the start of your next command phase. Each time an attack with an armor penetration characteristic of -1 or -2 is allocated to that model, then that in that unit, that attack has an armor penetration characteristic of 0 instead. Oh boy, very good. I mean, this is going to really increase the survivability of your Skitarii units. Taking a max blob of 20 and then throwing this on them. I mean, especially if you do something like Lucius Infantry, for example, a big blob of Lucius Infantry, these guys are going to be seriously, seriously durable. You're now stacking some impressive stuff. You're going to basically make them immune to small arms fire, and that's going to really help against Marines that are chugging tons of bolter shots at you, or anything that's really going to be targeting your base infantry. Huge bonus for survivability. And I mean, the ability to throw it on any core. I mean, you could also use it to bolster up a unit of like Iron Strider Ballistari to keep them on the table a little longer, because God knows you want those guys to keep chugging. Yeah, so I think the initial part is really strong. I think that's something that's probably going to be taken, and you may not choose to switch out of this. But the advanced part, Flaws of the Foe. In your command phase, if this part is active for your model, select one friendly forgeable core or Cataphren Servitor unit within 6 inches of the model until the start of your next command phase. Each time a model in that unit makes a range attack, the target does not receive the benefits of cover for that attack. There's... yeah, maybe... it's not great. I mean, it would be great to pop on, Cataphren Destroyers or something like that, but anything that has a high AP value, you're not really worried about it too much as it is. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're really going to probably struggle to find a reason to switch out of the initial part with this one, just because it's that good, and it's really going to bolster your guys and make them tough. So, in my opinion, I mean, this one comes in at 35 points. It is the most expensive one. It's the most expensive option, but I find that it's definitely worth it if you want to keep your guys on the table. So, yeah, it gets a win for me. It's not going to be my favorite. We're still getting to that, but it's up there. Next, we have the Magi. So the Magi. Aggressive subroutines, once per battle if this model's on the battlefield. When you're using Adeptus Mechanicus Epic Deed stratagem, reduce the CP cost of that stratagem by 1 command point. Note that the CP cost is only reduced, again. So the CP cost is only reduced, again, by 1 for that one use. Don't forget that. the initial part of this one is predatory programming. In your command phase, if this part is active for the model, select one friendly Forge World core unit within 6 inches of this model. Until the start of your next command phase, add 2 to the advanced rolls made for this unit. It's okay. I mean, there's lots of ways to increase your mobility with specific units in this codex. Whether it be re-rolling advanced rolls, rolling, additional dice, things like that, or being able to auto advance 6 inches for your, your raiders and your iron striders or your ballistari. Yeah, I don't know. It definitely not one of the better ones in my opinion. But then the advanced part, overloaded safeguards. In your command phase, if this part is active for your for this model, select one friendly Forge World core unit within 6 inches of this model. Until the start of the next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional attack. This can be gross if you're doing things like popping the stratagem for your galvanic rifles to rapid fire 4 shots per ranger or something like that, or on Vanguard, and you're now having additional hits go through. It's even really strong on something like a max Ballistari Iron Strider squad, where you have a whole bunch of las cannons you're throwing at the enemy. I mean, a max squad, you're looking at 12 las cannon shots. That's a potential, on average, of 2 additional hits that you're going to be putting through. 2 extra las cannons is good in my books. Or alternatively, look at their auto cannon variant and just chug tons of shots and have the ability to have a whole bunch of extra shots come through. So this is extremely strong. I think there's going to be a lot of clever ways to play this, and just remember to switch over to the advanced in your first turn so that in the second turn you're ready to go, and you just need to make sure that your units aren't moving too far away from the character that has it, or maybe first turn move to the character that has it. That's another way of looking at it. Now, next up we have the Artisans. Now, I think this one is going to be my favorite, personally. First of all, it's going to gain the extra CP for a War Gear stratagem. Tons of great War Gear stratagems. I mean, that's really the bread and butter of our stratagem section. All of the greatest ones, I think, are in there. They're just the glaring obvious ones. Having your Vanguard be able to auto wound on 4s for free, essentially, for 1 turn, or have your galvanic rifles doing the rapid fire up to 4 shots for 1 command point instead of 2. It's very strong. So yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff here. Now, as far as the initial part for them, the enhanced biochemical interference, interface. At the end of your movement phase, if this part is active for the model, select one forgeable core or Cataphron Servitor unit within 6 inches of the model until the start of your next movement phase. The unit is eligible to charge and shoot in a turn in which it fell back. But if it shoots, it's at -1 to hit. Pretty strong on a big blob of Cataphron Servitors. Great on Scutari if you're not taking half the squad off in your opponent's fight phase. I mean, it's pretty good. There's a lot of options within the army and all of their core rules, or their army specific rules, to be able to fall back and shoot. So doing so at -1, really what we're looking at for this is the ability to charge on the turn that you fell back. Pretty good for maybe even, it is a Forge World core unit, so if a data smith is nearby, you can see yourself throwing this on some Castellan robots and having the ability to fall back and charge. And yeah, it's pretty strong. I think it's going to be a really good option. Now, the advanced part for this one, though, in your command phase, if this part is active for this model, select one friendly Forge World core unit within 6 inches of this model. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, add 1 to the strength characteristic of that attack. Yes. Again, Rangers. If you have this on a Manipulus and you're already throwing his ability on a max squad of Rangers, and you're buffing these guys, you're giving them now AP -2 attacks. You're increasing their range for their rapid fire ability. You're popping that stratagem because you're doing it for 1 command point now, and then now on top of that, they're now up to strength 5. That's amazing. It is Forge World Core, so again, you could throw this up on a on something like Iron Strider, Ballistari, the autocannons, and make them better autocannons, higher strength autocannons. Wounding T7 stuff on threes is pretty strong as well. So you can see where there's a lot of flexibility with this one. This one is definitely going to be my favorite. Just because I can see myself using it in every game in all of my lists, especially in a list where you're trying to kind of complement both melee and shooting focus. You have the ability to complement both of those type things in both stages of this one. So I think they're really strong. I think they're going to get a lot of play. There's going to be some really cool combos we're going to see come out of the competitive scene with these. I think Artisans is going to be number one for me. I think Magi, if you're using the overloaded safeguards and flipping into advance right off the hop, I think that's going to be a really good one. The Logai, I mean, they're okay. The Genitors, those two are sort of at the, I'm going to say at the bottom. The Artisans, I should also mention, it's only 25 points. It's one of the cheaper of the two cheaper options. So that kind of makes it stand out a little bit more to me as well. But remember, again, you're if you look at it as these extra rules that you're throwing on your models, complementing maybe one specific unit in your army, you're really only spending the points on that command point, that free command point. And then after that, everything else is just kind of icing on the cake. So, I think really important to remember your ranges, guys, for your characters, remembering the synergies with your auras and your abilities. Just please make sure that you're not moving yourself out of that, so that because, I mean, this does happen in the command phase, right? So you have to think about the next turn and where your units are going to be. If you're planning on, moving over to the advanced portion or the advanced part of these rules, if you move yourself out, you're wasting those points. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have some crazy combos that you can share in the comments below, things that you guys have come up with, maybe through playtesting, having a few games with the new codex. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.
Sponsored by
Praise the Omnissiah, and praise you for hitting that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys. Boom.